much indeed. Number of texts on the Cass report, which was the report led by Helen Cass on gender services for children and young people, highly critical of the way that they had been carried out, looking for a clearer way ahead. Here's a question for the Green chap. It says this one. Will you comply with the findings of the Cass report? Do you know more than an expert with 30 years of experience on this one? Some feedback back for the Greens. They won't get my vote without supporting women's rights and the conflict with trans rights, clarify the Equality Act to protect single-sex spaces and implement the Cass report. Excuse me. This is not a culture war, but a feminist issue. My local sports centre lets males use female single-sex communal changing rooms if they want to. No gender recognition certificate required. That's from Sue in Guildford. There's those two. But let me just put it into some context, because your colleagues in Edinburgh, in the Scottish government, they walked out. It was one of the reasons for the collapse of the administration, the coalition with the Scottish National Party. And a man I'm sure you're very close to, their co-leader Patrick Harvey, did not accept the report as a valid scientific document. Hilary Cass said, if you deliberately try to undermine a report that looks at evidence of children's healthcare, that is unforgivable. Do you accept the report as a valid scientific document?
So you highlighted the Scottish Greens there, Nikki. They're a separate party from the Green Party of England and Wales, and I would...
Are you dissociating yourself with Patrick Harvey's comment?
I would proudly highlight what the Scottish Greens have achieved on other issues, whether that's renewable energy, on public transport, on child poverty. I don't share Patrick Harvey's view on the Cass report. I'll give you my personal view on that, because in the Green Party of England and Wales, we haven't taken a formal party position on it. My view is that Hilary Cass, as you say, is an eminent and experienced paediatrician. And the first thing that she's highlighted is that there's a really toxic debate on this issue, and we need to be able to have a calm discussion about how we can support every young person's needs in a holistic way. And there's a number of points she's made. One is that there's a very long waiting list for young people to get access to services when they're questioning their gender identity, that we don't have regional and local services around the country, that there needs to be more of an evidence base built around the impact of different drugs that are used, and also that we need to have a holistic approach where the range of needs that any one young person may have are properly addressed in the round, because there have been instances where, for example, mental health issues, which we know are seriously underfunded, are not supported when a young person may have a range of different needs. So there's a measured report here with a range of recommendations that I think does help move the debate forward. Hilary Cass is not talking about stopping healthcare for young people questioning their gender identity. She's talking about doing it in the round and with an evidence base.
This evidence base. Just to come to the question there in a minute. Darren Johnson, who is a London Assembly member, a former mayoral candidate for you, is being fallen out with the party, and he says, you talk about evidence base. He says, I'm beyond despair that a political party I've been a member of for decades, that has always said trust the science when it comes to climate change or air and river pollution, is apparently putting ideology before science on this. You're not then, are you? Or are you?
So I've given you my personal view on the Cass report.
What about women's spaces? Women's spaces.
Which is that I accept the recommendations of the Cass report, and that that's my own personal view. There are colleagues in the party that have got questions over how specific elements of it would be implemented, such as, for example, if someone has had treatment privately, will they then also get treatment within the NHS? That's a reasonable question to ask. Yeah. But yes, of course, there needs to be an evidence-based approach, and that includes in relation to different drugs that are used. And so Hilary Cass has said that any drugs that are used need to be part of a long-term clinical trial where you can judge the long-term impact of those.
I want to move on, but there is a question. I sort of took it away from the question there. Will you protect women's spaces? Is that how that text put it?
So again, this is a hugely complex and sensitive question where you're often pushed for a short answer.
Is that not a simple question?
Well, the reason why it's not a simple question is because we need to ensure that trans people have access to the services that they need, just as women should have access to the services that they need and be treated with respect and dignity and the support that they have. My own view is that the Equality Act makes clear that there can be exemptions to the principle of services being accessed on the basis of gender, where you can sometimes have a situation where services are accessed on the basis of biological sex. And those exemptions, in my view, should be retained. But you need to do so in a way where you're not then resulting in trans people not having access to the services that they need. And it's not straightforward. You need to look at one service at a time.
You've made the point, and it will be picked up elsewhere, as it has been. As you say, it is a very lively debate.